The book that I'll be discussing today is Victors and Victims, a book by K.R. Harrison. The book begins with the problems with victims and the power of victors. Victims demand rights rather than responsibility, whereas victors take a proactive approach to life. Victims are just trying to survive in life and have their focus squarely on themselves, whereas the victors accept responsibility and constructive criticism because of an inherent desire to sharpen their skills to take advantage of opportunity. We all have a choice. The unsuccessful person avoids choice and spends his time explaining to himself and anyone who will listen how he really has no choice. Successful people make choices quicker and force choice more often. Victors don't live in regret over what might have been or what happened yesterday, whereas victims obsess over past failures and hurts, feeding a growing cancer of bitterness. They lose the potential to generate success. Their unconscious goal becomes recruiting other victims to fill their daily need to review the past and ignore the present. Victors seek to meet the expectations in their relationships in mutually rewarding transactions, whereas victims seek only to take from their relationships. When people are not clear about their offer or their identity, they expect others to be responsible for it. The offer is always changing to meet the demands in which you are involved, but the intention does not. The importance of having clear identity before making an offer is as follows. Offer without identity equals slavery. Identity without an offer equals arrogance. But identity plus an offer equals successful relationships. Who you are, the choices you've made over a lifetime, and the stories you do or don't have are all revealed in the unguarded moments. In a crisis, is your immediate response to be defensive? Is it to formulate a story as to why it isn't your fault? Is it to blame someone else? Or is it to take responsibility and to learn? The victim definition of ambition is knowing what you want and getting it. The problem is that there's no basic understanding of the needs of others in that definition. One becomes emotionally tied to the insistence that others take his or her offer because it helps them get what they want. Take it far enough and dishonesty and deception eventually rule. The victor definition of ambition is knowing who you are and giving it. You offer what you are and others can decide if that's what they want. One of the foundational declarations of victims is that someone else is in charge. Victors understand that they are in charge of everything for which they are responsible. Victors promote mutual contribution as a key solution to anxiety in times of crisis. When faced with a crisis situation, people fall into one of two categories: those who seek assurance and those who give it. The choice is to give or seek assurance in a crisis is rarely a conscious decision on the choice or on the part of the individual, but the consequences of this choice will determine the viability of a person's leadership success. Leaders with the capacity to convey assurance about the outcome in crisis will also notice that they are attracting victors who also see the opportunity to participate in determining a new future, rather than becoming distracted by victims wanting more assurance before they consider participating. Victors want the opportunity, not the explanation, and know that contributing to the collective effort will ultimately resolve the crisis. The most important trait of true leadership is the ability to separate truth from lies. Truth always demands a hearing. It demands to be exposed and refuses to stay covered up. Lies, exaggeration, and gossip insist that everything falls into shades of gray with no black or white. The truth is all in your perspective. If you insist on only one set of facts, you are narrow-minded. George Orwell once said, "The further society drifts from the truth, the more it will hate those who speak it." Victims hate truth. Truth not only demands to be exposed, but it's also a great exposer. There's a great story told in the book about a friend of Ken's that was a 3-star admiral at the Bethesda Hospital where President Reagan was brought in after being shot. He tells us seeing the president near death when he got there and had only just been stabilized. When no one was around, the president got up to get himself some water and dropped the cup, spilling water. A nurse came into the room to find him on his knees wiping the water from the floor. Horrified, she told him she would wipe up the water and grab some towels. Reagan just smiled at her and said, "That's okay. I'm the one who spilt it." Victims demand that you apologize for being a leader. Their thinking is that if you believe you have the skills to do the job, you must be arrogant. Too many true leaders are afraid to claim their natural place at the helm of society because they see the victims lined up to destroy anyone who dares to point toward the future. There are chapters on striving for solutions, empowering victor attitudes and actions. It goes into great detail, the plan necessary for the victor mentality. There is so much more material to the book that I have not mentioned. And if you're looking for a resource that explains our intolerant society, this is a great one. It will also help you in understanding your relationships better. It has given me so much more insight in the direction of some of my most challenging relationships. My hope is that you will add this resource to your library to better understand the future generations that seem to be more of a victim mentality versus a victor mentality.